It's golf's happy place when you're at your Paramus, East Hanover, White Plains, or Westbury area PGA Tour Superstore locations. PGA Tour Superstores are the home for golf pros and beginners. You'll find the largest selection of golf clubs, shoes, men's and women's apparel, and so much more. Get out to your local PGA Tour Superstore and spend some time with a PGA Tour Superstore certified teaching professional and become a master of the links. Come visit any of the stores in Paramus, East Hanover, White Plains, or Westbury, and be ready to have a great time on the links.
This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. I am Steve Gould. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Thank you. Don't adjust your televisions or your phones. I am pink. Pinker than normal. Honestly, I broke my webcam, and I guess they don't last forever. They're really cheap, and I was going to get a new one, but I also just had to buy a new computer, which was expensive, so I learned I could use my iPhone as a camera, and which is really cool, except I can't have my iPhone now when I'm doing the podcast, and also the camera lenses are really, really good. They're really, really high definition. I feel like the newscasters, when we all went to HD first, from like the old televisions, I can see every line in my face. So it's actually leave it to the witchcraft at Apple to actually make a camera better on their phone than an actual webcam. And I researched it. You actually can't. It's really hard to find a webcam that is better than an iPhone. So if you really love the show and you want to donate, now would be a good time to join Patreon. I am having a few hardware issues. So if there's big donors out there just waiting in the wings, waiting for a moment to really bless the show, webcam would be fantastic. So thank you to all the Patreon supporters. Patreon is the main driver for the show. It keeps the lights on pace for all the services that I use. There's a patrolman, there's a sergeant. You get different things with each, direct access to me. It's a fun time. Starting to get a good number of people in there, so posting there is kind of fun. And I think I want to do some live events in there coming up once we have some more people that will interact. So the show, the link to that is in the show notes. If you really, really love the show, you can go there. If you love the show, but that's not in the budget, I totally understand. Not everybody has it in the budget to give old Gingerface some money per month for a podcast. It's going to remain free. I promise you that. But if you could give it a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, that would be huge, and I would totally appreciate that. Let me see. Is it all the housekeeping I have? I think it is. Yeah, just give me money. Join the Patreon. I need a web camera. I think that covers it all, guys. I stood outside for 8 hours today in the sun in the beginning of April, and I got burnt. So a little peek into being a redhead. That's even in New England. That's what it's like. But today's guest, I'm super excited to come on. He's good friends with a mutual good friend of mine. He works in the Pacific Northwest. He has many years on the job. He has 28 years combined working in Wisconsin and Washington. He served as an SRO, a motor officer, collision reconstructionist, detective, recruiting and hiring officer, and currently assigned to the State Academy as a TAC officer. He is active on the job, so we won't specifically name his agency, but he is in Washington. Without further ado, let me bring on Donovan Hebner. Donovan!
Hey, thanks for having me.
What's up, brother? It's my pleasure. I have had my eye on you for a while.
I'm super excited. You know, I got to know Ken and got to know you, and I've been dying to be on your podcast. So this is great.
Oh man, I'm happy to have you. Yeah, Ken is a hell of a guy. If you guys aren't checking out, and Donovan actually makes you're featured on Ken's podcast all the time, the Police Applicant Podcast. A lot of stuff in there for people who want to become police officers, but also I've been in law enforcement almost 16 years, and I listen because all the tributary stories and advice that comes up. It's not just really for police applicant. I'm super entertained watching that show. It's a fun time. It's really turned into something cool.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun to do. I mean, we get to talk to some great people. I'm always happy when he asks me to come on and co-host with him. It is a lot of fun. I learn a lot too. Yeah,
that's cool, man. You're at the State Academy. So is Washington one of those states that everybody goes to the same academy and then you kind of go out to your own departments?
Yeah, so we have a main academy in Burien, Washington, which is just south of Seattle. We do have a satellite over in Spokane on the other side of the state. And I want to say in May, we are opening up another satellite in Pasco, Washington, which is a little south of us on the other side of the mountains as well. So we're getting some satellites out there. But right now, Burion's the main campus. We run about 7 to 8 academies at a time. So we're always busy there.
Wow. Yeah. So that's a total convergence of police training. I mean, that it only makes sense if you actually want standardization of training. That's the way to do it. I mean, I feel like Massachusetts you would be appalled how Massachusetts is training, Donovan. It's like there's regional municipal academies, there's state municipal academies, there's a state police academy, there's a sheriff's corrections academy, all different. Sheriffs don't actually do any patrolling out here. The state police won't accept our academy. If you go to their academy as a municipal guy, they will make you go through their academy again when you become a trooper. It's a total mess. And the states around us, they will do like what you're doing. They'll have a central clearinghouse, and then if the troopers want to have their own super hard ass, learn how to scream at somebody on the side of the highway academy, you go to that. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it just seems like go ahead.
I actually went to the academy in Wisconsin. That's where I had my, that's my first academy I went to, and that was run through tech colleges. So it was literally going to college for the academy. So this is new for me. I mean, I've been out here for a while, so I've got used to it. But yeah, having that central academy is really nice. Except our state patrol won't accept our academy either. If you go to state patrol after being on the job, you have to go through their academy yet.
Oh yeah, the trooper deal. Yeah, I think New Hampshire and Vermont in New England are the two states where in Maine you can just take their little baby academy and kind of transfer in. But everybody else, like Connecticut, New York, Mass, the bigger states, they got to trooperize you or whatever they do. And their academies suck. Right. They're really hard.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
What about your game wardens? Do they go through that and then go through a separate game warden academy?
No. Well, they actually come through our basic academy. And then they have just on the job training. They don't have any other academy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's like Mass Environmental Police. They as they got less and less money for their budget, they used to do their own separate thing after academy, and now I think you just like ride. They've gone backwards. I think you just kind of like ride along with a guy and kind of learn the game laws and all that. All right, I'm kind of geeking out here on police academy stuff, but I think it's super interesting to hear that stuff.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Donovan, can you take us way back to young Officer Hevner on the streets, your first intense call that you responded to, your first call that got you, your first hot call? Geez, I've only asked the question 400 times.
Yeah. And man, I really had to dig on this one. So I remember I was on FTO, bright-eyed, ready to get out there and tear up the world.
Of course.
It was a very cold Wisconsin day, had just snowed. I wasn't even allowed to drive the car at that time. My FTO was still under control of the vehicle, and we were going to a burglary in progress. And it was one of those where, heart's racing and everything. We get there, find out that the guy who was in the midst of a burglary ended up running just before we got there. And, since it had just snowed, we get to track him.
Yeah. They don't get that in Southern California.
No, not at all. Not at all. But now that I know more, I'm like, wow, what were they thinking? But my FTO said, all right, you follow the tracks and I'm going to drive on the street. So there I am.
You'll be the dog.
It's exactly what it came down to. I was following the tracks through backyards and winding through. And even though I was working with the sheriff's department, it was in a contract city. And man, I got myself wound up into some backyards. I had no idea the streets. I could not figure out where I was. And then all of a sudden I literally turned a corner and I ended up tripping over the guy because he was hiding behind a tree with his foot sticking out. I ended up tripping over him, falling flat on my face in the snow. And I think we were both surprised. I mean, kind of looked at each other big eyed, like, what the heck just happened there?
Yeah.
And I got up and again, just being that new officer, that's my first big arrest. I got up and I'm like, all right, we're going to do this. I grabbed him by the arm and I said, let's walk out to the road. I didn't handcuff him or anything.
I was going to say, when you were searching in those yards, you must have been thinking, like, what am I going to do? Am I going to have to shoot this guy? What's going to happen?
Yeah, I never thought I'd trip on him, but I walked him out to that road. I got a big grin on my face, and my FTO comes barreling down the road, sees me, and he jumps out of the car. He's like, what the hell are you doing? He grabs the guy, throws him up against the car, handcuffs him. And here I thought I was going to get praises, and I got yelled at for not handcuffing him. And it was an absolute mess. It's what every recruit thinks, oh, this is what your first call is going to be. And, and again, that was in the day and age when I think I had maybe 300 hours for the academy. We didn't do any scenario stuff or anything. So I don't know what I expected of myself. I didn't expect to, I guess, flub it that bad. But to me, that one always sticks in my head as that very first, oh geez, since it was my first arrest, and kind of embarrassing. I get to tell recruits about it now. I'm like, hey, if you guys think you're going to screw up, listen to this one.
Well, it sounds like it went well. The guy cooperated, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, that was the day and age when, criminals actually had a little respect. And again, remember, it's Wisconsin, so everyone's nice in Wisconsin.
Or however they talk.
Yeah, don't you know, right? And then we're getting ready to leave, and he says, hey, say hi to your folks and all that kind of stuff. And
tell your mom I said hi.
Yeah.
That's funny. Wow. So you didn't even when you escorted him out there through the lawn, he was fine. He just went with the escort, and
he just walked right along with me. I'm like, after looking back on it, I'm like, that dude could have just never had second thought. He could have just taken off, but he never did. I think he was just as surprised as I was that, number one, I caught him, and then number two, that I wasn't really doing much but walking him out.
Yeah, that's freaky, man. Especially the part about not knowing where you are. That is like, FTOs now harp on it. They will at any moment say, where are we? And it's, it's embarrassing because half the time they're when you're new, you're concentrating on so many different things. Locations, a main one. But I had Eric Tansey on, and he got into a pursuit in Raleigh, which is a good sized city. And he didn't know where it was. And he's like, there's a 7-Eleven. We went by 7-Eleven. There's 18 in the city. Where are you?
Right. Well, and see, since I was with the county, we weren't even supposed to be in the contract city. We were supposed to, as an FTO car, we were supposed to stay out, but we just happened to be leaving the department and rolling through, and they figured, what the heck? And I think I was only on my second week maybe of FTO. So like I said, I wasn't even driving then. So I had no clue where I was at. That was the scary part. Oh, I just said, I'm coming out between some houses onto the road. And they're like, we don't know where you're at. And I'm like, well, I'm right here.
I remember that being new too. Just being nervous to even talk on the radio. Never mind, not knowing where you are. Oh man.
Yep.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Donovan.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your a strange or bizarre thing you've dealt with so far?
I'm going to tell you the strangest thing I dealt with, and it's one of those disturbing things, and literally it still haunts me. So I spent 9 years with the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force for FBI, with two small agencies in Wisconsin, and being with a small agency and having that expertise. If something comes up, they look to you as, hey, you're the expert.
Sure.
And there was an incident that we were investigating with the postal inspectors. There was a gentleman in the village that I was working in that had been trading his daughter's underwear for child pornography.
Oh man.
Yeah. So they called me in, and, we had a couple people from our department, and they're just briefing us on it, and never really gave the name, never really thought about it. They were going to go over to his place of employment. I went over there. They actually hit his place of employment. He was there, and they told me, hey, you need to head back to your department. We're going to have the victim meet you there. Here's some evidence. You need to show this to the victim to see if this belongs to the victim. And I'm driving back, not thinking anything about it, what's going on. And I get back there, and my sergeant, I remember him just saying, hey, victim's in the interview room. You want me in there? I'm like, oh, yeah, I need someone in with me. I can't do this by myself.
Sure.
And they said, well, it's a juvenile. I said, okay. And I was also, I forget to mention, during this whole thing, I'm the school resource officer as well for the small community. So I know all the kids. So I'm like, I probably know them. Door opened up, and I was absolutely speechless. Here it was, my daughter's best friend.
Oh my goodness.
someone who had been at my house numerous times, sleepovers, everything. And I met her parents, I met her stepfather. I met them all, and it's one of those things. Just your heart just sinks. And I'm like, I kind of step back, and I'm like, I don't know that I can do this. And they're like,
"You're the guy.
You're it. Yeah, you got to do this." So the hardest thing having to do is taking her underwear and holding them up and saying, "I got to ask you, are these yours?"
Yeah. And
then, of course, it was kind of like yeah, they are, like nothing.
Sure.
But then having to do the full interview with her, that was the tough part, to find out everything that happened, and knowing that my daughter had been at that house.
Oh my gosh, your mind must have been racing.
Yeah. Oh, it was. And this is, like 7th, 8th grade, I think, in school, where they were. My mind was just all over the place. It was hard for me to concentrate. But that's one, I mean, when people talk about, they have these crazy calls and all this kind of stuff, I wish I had a really crazy call that could wipe this one out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it can't. I mean, it's there. And it's one that I've never really even talked with my daughter about. She's 30 years old now.
Right.
And never talked to her about it. And coincidentally, it was my wife was with my daughter down in Florida a couple weeks ago. And for some reason, this came up that, they all knew about it. The entire school knew about it. They all knew what I did. They all knew, what was going on. Just like no big deal. And here I've just been horrified for years about this, and knowing what's going on. And I got to say, that's probably the most bizarre is getting involved in that, and people ask me, well, why would your department let you do that? Again, I was it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I mean, what are you going to do? I work for a place on Cape Cod when this whole sexual investigator certification was becoming a thing the state wanted. It wasn't mandatory yet, but it was like, we highly prefer you get a sexual investigator, in that it's preferably female, but men are acceptable too. That was kind of the way they started the program, because rape, the numbers of rape. And I can remember like trying to call our sexual investigator, and she's just off and, not around or whatever. And we were still doing them. So it was like, there's a lot of pressure with those, especially now in our state. There's like a whole, you take the interview differently, you transcribe it differently. It's a whole, you really need a sexual investigator to do it. How did you, from that point, I can't imagine you weren't anything but hypervigilant with like sleepovers and like your daughter's friends. You must have thought like, because kids want to sleep over each other's houses, and it's like, man, if this guy was capable of that, I had no idea. That's a thing that like would torture me, along with all the other, intensity of that. Did that drive you nuts?
It did. It did for a long time. But I knew my daughter was that strong person that she would say something,
right?
And not allow it to happen.
And they don't prey on kids like that either. They don't prey on confident kids.
They don't. But unfortunately, at that same time, just to even make it more bizarre, I ended up in a whole investigation of one of the teachers sleeping with a student as well. Because she was they were in 8th grade going up to high school, and I was actually investigating the high school, I think he was like English teacher or something, who was also cross country coach, for sleeping with a student. And my daughter was going to be going onto the cross country team.
Yeah.
When this is all going down. So it's just, there was just a whole lot that was just enveloped into that. And I was just like, oh man, this just can't be happening. I don't know if I can go on with this, but I was super hyper vigilant on just super nervous on that whole thing. Yeah.
So it's terrible, man. My daughter was in, when we lived on the Cape, she was in, kindergarten, and we were kind of trying to make the decision if she should stay there or maybe there was this other school she could go to. And she had in beginning education, she had some delays, like I forget what they call them, but yeah, it's kind of like delayed whatever. And she was fine in the class, but we're like, maybe she could benefit from 1 year at like a more of a specialized thing. That ended up what we were doing. But the teacher she was supposed to get for the next year was arrested for molesting like 7 kids in the class where she would have been. and she is meek and sweet and tries really hard because she had those developmental delays at the beginning. And me and my wife were just like, oh my gosh, that this could have been, and this guy, everybody loved him, you know, and now that happens. So it's tough, man. It's tough to, especially when it's your line of work, you know?
Yep. Being a cop, knowing that stuff. But you know what? I think a lot of, and the other part is my daughter's other friend is a pastor's daughter, you know, when they were growing up, and everyone talks about, man, the pastor's daughter and the cop's daughter together. That's no good.
Hellraisers.
Yeah. But, you know, I got to say, I mean, and I see this with a lot of the kids in law enforcement who have law enforcement parents, is they turn out to be super strong. I mean, my daughter got robbed when she was in college, going to UW Milwaukee. And as soon as I heard about it, I'm like, all right, so what did you do? And she's like, well, you know, after he pushed me down, took all my stuff, I got the license plate, I got a description, I called 911. I did, you know, and she went right on down the list. I'm like, holy crap, you are a cop's daughter. I mean, you handled everything just perfect. And she's just like, yeah, I got it. I'm fine.
Oh, thank goodness, man. Thank goodness. Did you, the father of this young girl, did you know him at all? I mean, you had some interaction with him. Was there any inklings now that you look back?
No inklings whatsoever. No, I had no idea. And I'd met him several times, you know, at different school events and things. And I had known her mother from events as well. So never had any indicator that anything was going on.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely can't let my wife listen to this episode because the kids will be locked up. I had a sex crimes, internet sex crimes. His name is eluding me. Great guy. He came on the show, and it was like all the parents that listen, including my wife, were like, because it's just, he was in training, and like in training, they were catching cases in like Texas at the school they were at, and they brought them home to their jurisdictions. I was like, he said it's just that easy on the internet anyways.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was getting leads all the time from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children on stuff to do. So I was busy. And again, being in that small community, I had to deal with several of the students that I knew and, you know, had called friends that just made things really awkward. But, you know, I think it helped out, though, a little bit that they did know me. They trusted me through those investigations. So that did help to, you know, that worked to my advantage a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. You're a person in the community, trusted, people know you. Yeah, I remember chiefs, believe it or not, might shock people who aren't law enforcement, but chiefs sometimes don't like this kind of specialty, because I know of a person at a smaller department that got certified in the sex crimes thing, and it became like their whole job. And most of these people were out of jurisdiction. And the chief was like, did not send you to this school so that you can't patrol. Like, because she just had all these cases. And it sounds terrible, but it's like, we're not the FBI here. We don't have the resources for you to bird dog 30 paterasses. You know, this is nuts, but that's just how easy it is. I don't know how you are, probably same as me, but we're pretty strict with, my daughter's 13 and she does have a phone, but we like, the phone's like on the counter at nighttime. She doesn't surf the internet freely. She usually, you know, she'll let us know, like, I want to look something up in this subject. And she's a good kid, so it's usually like art or something like that. But when I see the kids her age just kind of free scrolling it's all they do. Other girls her age, it's like, she'll say like, I want to hang out, but it's like, they don't even want to like do things. They just want to like either like play a game together or just, she said, I'll just be standing there and they're just looking at their phones the entire time. It's a problem.
Oh yeah. And my daughter, both my kids, they were like mad at me because, you know, I had all this knowledge about what goes on the internet. And that was quite a while ago. And, you know, while they were in middle school and high school, they got phones later than anyone else in school. I was all up and, you know, you had to give me every password. You couldn't be on anything. I knew how to check your history.
Right.
MSN Messenger was the big thing. So I was all over that on them. And so they felt it was pretty miserable, but you know, my daughter must have learned something because now she's a social media manager. So
yeah, you didn't inhibit her learning.
Nope.
That's the old pass off a lot of parents will do. Is like, well, they need to know how to use technology. I'm like, well, I think you could cap it at 10 hours a day. I think they know the phone better than you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh man. Donovan, can you tell us about your most intense or terrifying experience?
Yeah. So, this would have been Halloween of 2021. And not even duty related. I used to be an avid runner, ran marathons, half marathons, and it's still coming out of COVID, just getting ready to do a virtual 10K that I had lined up. So I know how many miles I had to run. Got up. Normally my dog would go running with me. He looked at me like, ain't happening today. I'm staying in bed. I'm like, oh, okay,
I would
whatever.
be that dog.
Yeah, because I was getting up 5 o'clock in the morning. So, yeah. and so the other thing is I looked at my gun safe and I'm like, you know what? Normally I always run with my gun on my long runs, and I'm like, I just don't want to deal with it today. I just left it up in my gun safe. And for some reason, there's an app that tracks you on a run. And I had used it quite a while and got a new iPhone. Didn't reload it. And I thought, I'm going to load it back up just so that my wife can track where I'm at.
Sure.
Load it back up, head out on my run. It's tracking me. And I'm getting to about mile 5 and I got to do just over 6. And I'm like, the route I'm taking, I got to go off the beaten path where I don't like to go in a business district, and decided to go down there. And I'm running past all these used car dealerships a little before 7 in the morning. And I see cars started and they're scraping them off. And I'm like, must be getting started early.
Right.
And then I get up to implement supply place where they sell tractors, chainsaws, all that kind of stuff. And it's right on the corner of a road. And as I get there, I see 2 guys wearing masks, wrapping tow straps around the handles of the front doors with their trucks backed up to the doors.
Yikes.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not a detective right now, but I think I can figure out what they're doing. So I thought, all right, I'm going to do what my department says and not get involved, but I'm going to be the good witness. So I try to hide behind a telephone pole, start calling 911, and I want to try to get some pictures. The thing I didn't count on is when you're out for a run in the morning, running on the roads, you're usually wearing very high visibility clothes.
Yeah.
So I was wearing one of those safety yellow sweatshirts, and it caught their eye. They looked over at me, and they took the straps off the door right away. Threw them in the back of their trucks, and both hopped in their trucks. And at that point, I'm like, I know the gig's up. So I kind of stepped out and I was going to get some pictures of them. And I see them pull out of the driveway. And I remember hearing 2 bangs, 2 shots from a gun, and then just having a pain in my stomach.
Whoa.
And just saying, holy crap, I think I was just shot.
Oh my goodness.
And, disbelief sets in first. And I'm like, no, it's just paintball. And I look down at my stomach and I look at my hand and I don't see any blood on my hand. And at that point, I'm like, I think this is bad.
Yeah. Oh man.
So and I remember right after that happened, I remember myself laying up against the telephone pole that I was hiding behind, yelling at the dispatcher, I've just been shot. I'm an off-duty officer. And then I look across the street and there's a person walking towards me. And the first thing I thought is, that's the guy who shot me. I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And so I'm telling them, hey, they're coming at me. I run out into the middle of what's normally a busy road, but it's, 7 o'clock Sunday morning, not that busy. But several cars going by and I'm running down this 5-lane road down the middle of it, waving at cars, and no one's stopping.
This is like a nightmare.
Really is. And I clocked it out. I ran about 150 yards before I made it off to the side of the road and just got down on a knee. I'm like, I just can't go anymore. And a guy pulled over and he asked me, hey, are you okay? I'm like, no, I've just been shot. And then another car pulls up in the 2-way left turn lane in the middle of the road. And it's this young girl, and she yells over to the guy, hey, is he all right? And he's like, no, he's just been shot. And they start having a conversation while I'm kind of like going down on the ground. So thankfully at that point I did hear the sirens. I saw the red and blue lights coming down in the distance, and I felt a little relief. They got there as quickly as possible. And as soon as the officers got there, just an immediate calm set in, because the first officer gets there and he checks my stomach. He's like, all right, there's the entry. And he rolls me over. He's like, all right, there's no exit. All right, no chest seal. And I'm like, all right, these guys at least have TAC med. I feel better about this now.
Yeah.
I'm feeling pretty good. And then fire department showed up right away, and they just scooped me up and threw me in the back. And we started heading off to the hospital right away.
Holy cow. What is the,
Yeah.
what was the, I wonder what did they ever catch those guys or?
I think they have it narrowed down to a couple of different people because it seems like it might be part of a group that's been stealing cars. Because remember, I told you I was running past cars that were started and running, and they were scraping them off.
Yes,
that was this group stealing cars out of the dealerships.
Oh,
so apparently they had stolen these trucks while I was running by, is my understanding.
Pretty ballsy, 7 a.m.
Yeah, so and they've been they were able to follow me on a lot of the business cameras where I was going in that area, so that helped them out a little bit, figure out what kind of happened.
Man, you think I mean, I understand their train of thought. They shoot you. You think you would shoot someone so they couldn't rat on you, but they shot a guy that got up and ran 150 yards and then called the cops, took pictures of them. It's like, I mean, I'm glad it happened that way, but it was like, what kind of weird, I mean, obviously they're not in the right mind anyways doing stuff like that, but what kind of weird, sloppy, now you've shot somebody, now it's going to be now it's just it's not just property, which they almost don't even care about anymore. Now you've actually shot a person. Now you're really screwed. It's like, how stupid are these people?
Right. And I'm not the only one. There was a security guard shot that was in one of the car dealerships, I want to say maybe a year ago. Wow. So it's happening out here in this area. I mean, everyone watches what's going on out in the Pacific Northwest with crime and how bad it's getting. And that's kind of I can't even say that's the start of it because it was already bad before that. So, but that's one of the things where, to me, kind of eye opening that, wow, things are really bad here.
Yeah. What caliber gun did you get shot with? I'm curious.
That's the crazy. It was a 40.
Really?
Yeah,
I thought those babies were penetrators, you know?
Yeah.
They hit the man of steel.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a 40, I'm like, 40 didn't go through me. I mean, come on. I know I have a couple extra layers, but man, that really made me feel bad. I thought, man, the 40 would go all the way through, at least a through and through. That's
scary, man. If someone was going to tell you in advance you're going to be shot in the future and it's with the 40, you'd be like, I'm not going to make it, because that's a really effective man killer.
Right. So after I got shot, then remember I told you that my wife had that tracker app, or I had that, and she can follow me. Well, it gives an alert if I'm not moving for a couple minutes.
Oh.
So while I'm laying on the side of the road with the fire department there, she's getting alerts that I'm not moving.
Wow.
And so then all of a sudden she brings it up and she can track me on the map, and it was delayed because it showed me running in the opposite direction from the house at one point, which is when I was running away from what I thought was someone that was chasing me. And she's just like, oh, he's having, bathroom emergency on his run. He's running back to a store or whatever. And she's like, maybe I should start getting ready. He may call me to pick him up or whatever. Well, then it went off again. And all of a sudden she saw me on the map, just like screaming down the road in the opposite direction. She's like, all right, something's not right. He shouldn't be moving that fast.
Oh, so she could even see how fast you're moving.
Well, yeah, she could see that. Yeah, that I was moving along pretty quick after they put me in the ambulance and started taking me to the trauma center. So,
oh, that makes sense. I was thinking she was tracking when you're running the 100 yards. I'm like,
no.
Okay, so his speed is detectable on the app. This guy's incredible.
Yeah, no. But when I got in that ambulance, it was detectable. She said I was moving along pretty quick. So she's like, yeah, something's not right. And the whole time, and she was calling me and texting me after that. And I just kept telling the fire department, who was in the back of the ambulance with me, I'm like, someone needs to answer this phone and tell her what's going on. Cause I can barely talk the way it is.
I bet.
And then trying to talk to my wife, there's no way. And they didn't until I got to the hospital. She was like getting in her car to come look for me. And then she got the call. So she's like, all right, I'm already in my car. I'm heading over to the hospital now.
Damn, man. I don't want you to have to relive this, but I am curious because I'm a firearms guy, and for foot-pounds of energy, like a 40 can approach 500, which is like dangerous because it can liquefy things. And how did that what did it feel like being shot? I mean, was your whole stomach on fire? Were your muscles clenching or?
Muscles weren't clenching. I do remember because I got shot in the lower right quadrant, and I just it burned. That's why I thought at first it was a paintball gun, because it's like, when we do simunitions and that, and you get hit with the simunitions that way, that stings on the outside of your skin. Yeah, I just kind of felt that at first, and when I checked, I'm like, oh, there's no paint there. But then it really started to burn all the way through. I mean, I could almost feel like the hole.
Yeah.
It did some damage. It left me some permanent things going on for my lower area.
Oh, that sucks. Did you keep the bullet? Did they pull it out?
Yeah, it's in evidence right now. So,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's booked. I know I would love to keep the bullet.
Yeah, man. I mean, after you were all patched up and it was clear that you were going to recover, the conversation with your wife must have been, all these years as a cop, and I get shot out jogging.
Hey, babe, what you got there?
This is a check from Carvana. I just sold my car to them. I went online and Carvana gave me an offer right away. Then they just picked up the car and gave me this.
Well, that's a big check. Well, obviously you could put this towards your next car, or we could finally get that jacuzzi, or I could start taking tuba lessons, or I could quit my job and write my memoir.
Or I can put it towards my next car with Carvana.
Sorry, your check, not mine.
Sell your car to Carvana. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to get a real offer in seconds.
Happy birthday, baby! And you'll be even happier to know I bought all your gifts at BJ's Wholesale Club.
Oh, so smart! Batteries and muffins.
Wellesley Farms muffins.
And toilet paper.
Nice, right?
Jeff, is BJ's having a member favorite special again?
I may have seen a sign.
Save over $50 on BJ's member favorites from Wellesley Farms in Berkeley Jensen now through May 22nd. Check your app for coupons. BJ's. Absurdly simple savings.
Out jogging, but I was the background investigator. She's like, I didn't think I had to worry about you.
She was finally at ease.
Yeah, she's like 15 years on night shift. You go into God knows what, and you're on desk duty, and you're out running on your own time, and you get shot.
Man.
She's like, this is crazy. So the good thing is I mean, right away, because I followed my department policy and everything, everyone, our workers' comp, my department, everyone stood behind me and said, yeah, this is a duty-related injury. He was doing what he was supposed to do as a police officer during that incident. So that was one benefit for me, is, just at least knowing what my department wanted me to do and abiding by that. So that helped out a lot.
Man, thank goodness, because I have heard like really gross stories of like departments like being like, you weren't like, you ever even heard of like guys off duty driving in their patrol car but off shift, and them trying not to cover them. And it's like the guy's in uniform in a marked car. I don't care if he's on the clock or not. I mean, you take the oath, you're on the clock 24 hours. Technically, your powers don't go away. But that, thank goodness you have good management. They stood behind you for that.
Yeah, and I got to say, I mean, Washington's pretty good about that in general with cops. They understand that we've got a job to do, and that, we, even though we're not working, we are working. I've talked to other officers who've been involved in other things, and there's never really been a question from workers' comp as to a fight, whether they're on duty or off duty.
Thank goodness, man. Well, I guess you take that gun with you jogging now, if you're still jogging.
Still having problems getting out jogging. When I do go, I mean, guns with me. I mean, just about any place I go now, I have that hypervigilance, not really trusting anyone anymore. So that's a tough part. Is running was always my stress reliever, and kind of lost that now. Still trying to get that back.
Oh, I'm sorry, brother. I didn't know it had such an impact on your life. That sucks. Yeah,
it's been one of those where, PTSD really hit hard.
I bet.
With that, and I kind of figured I had some from the internet crimes against children stuff. Never knew how bad until this hit. I'm fortunate enough, though, that, I was in the hospital for a week. When I got home from the hospital, I got home on a Friday. My wife medicated me and got me in the car on a Wednesday and took me to a therapist right away.
Oh, that's great.
And said, you're talking to someone, don't care if you say yes or no, you're going for one visit at least. And that really saved me. I didn't want to go, didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't know how bad things were for me. So that's a huge thing. And the great thing is being at the academy now, I do get to share my story with the recruits.
Yeah.
And talking about PTSD and talking about everything that I went through, not only just with the shooting, but the whole thing with the internet crimes against children and all the other calls. I mean, we endure so many traumatic events that, we've always been told just pack it down.
Right.
And we hear this over and over, and that, hey, we've got to talk to someone. I look back at me just probably 6 months before I got shot, looking at an officer who struggled with something, thinking, man, why are you so weak? Just pack it down, man. Just move along.
Stuff that in there.
And I guess I didn't know how bad it was. And I think because me and my wife have been together for longer than I've been a cop, she didn't really realize how bad I was getting, because she just kind of grew with me, knew that I didn't have much compassion for people anymore, outside of the business.
Sure. Like a slow boil.
And yeah. And now through therapy and everything, she's like, holy mackerel, you're starting to sound like that guy I started dating in high school.
Yeah, that's wonderful, man. I hope people listening take that to heart, because that really, I hear people say that officers have been involved in shootings or just have PTSD in general. So many are out there. That early treatment your wife got you is so huge, because it's like that when it really starts to bubble up and boil over, it's like got to be so much harder to deal with, to work that back than, all right, now we have this huge event. Why not just, like your wife said, why not just nip it in the bud? What's it going to, it's a $10 copay. Go talk to somebody, and if it feels like it's working, keep doing it. That's, thank God.
Yeah. And I mean, it was, even that first week when I was back home, I was, even though I could barely walk, I was getting up every hour, checking doors, checking windows, making sure they're all locked. Yeah. If I had to go to a doctor's appointment, I would look out the peephole before I walked out the door. I would open up the door. I'd check around the corners, check underneath the car. Just the hypervigilance just after that was literally driving me nuts. I don't know how else to explain it. I knew I wasn't in control anymore.
Yeah, especially too, because it's like on duty, it's understandable, of course, but at least then when you take the uniform off and you're out in public, you feel a little bit like you feel like you're a little bit in disguise. Like, I'm not in uniform, but you got shot and someone tried to kill you as a civilian. So it's like that, right. That turns everybody into a threat. It's like anybody could randomly do something, which isn't realistic, but that's how you feel, I'm sure, to be targeted like that. That's
it messed with me big time. So
damn, man. Well, I'm glad you got through that and you're here with us today, providing excellent content.
Yeah. No, it is good. And, the other thing that, a lot of us forget is what the spouses go through, whether we're involved in a critical incident or not, just the day in and day out of what we bring home, us working night shift, and our spouses, significant other family members, just worrying about us and the trauma that, they get that secondhand trauma that, a lot of us don't ever consider. And, it was pretty early that I started asking my wife, are you okay?
Yeah.
No one reached out to her and asked, hey, how are you doing? It was, me reaching out to her. And, she got involved in a support group, that was on Facebook that, now they talk, spouses, family members about the incidents that, their significant other was in and how it impacted them. So that's something I think that we in law enforcement forget is our families, and how much this affects them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of when you're younger too, getting into it, you have to find from my relationship anyways, to find the line of what you can share. Because being new and seeing something crazy, I couldn't wait to like have a cocktail with my wife and spill my guts. And then like seeing her face, like, just like I'm traumatizing her. She's not thinking this is like a great story. She's thinking like, oh, this is horrible. And to me, it was like, wow, this is, and she was like, oh, that really worries me. And I was like, instantly knew like overshared because now she doesn't want me to do this.
Yep. Yeah. I remember a time my wife asked if she could go on a ride along with me. And I said, yeah, come on. And this is when I, moved out here to Washington, and I work in a fairly busy city, and she went on the ride along. I pulled over this car, and guys seemed a little hinky to me. I start pulling them out. I'm frisking them. All of a sudden, I'm finding weapons. I'm handcuffing them. I'm putting a gun on the car. I'm putting a knife on the car. And I could just see my wife's eyes just continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I got done with that call. The guys are taking off the jail and everything. She's like, take me back to the station. I'm getting in the car. I don't want to know what you do ever again.
Smart lady. That's funny. Yeah, I can remember my mom growing up. One of her friends had a scanner and would always listen to the police force. My dad was a cop, and my mom would never have one. She's like, Steve, I won't sleep. She's like, I'll just be listening to the radio for what your dad's going to or what's going to happen. She's like, it's almost better just to talk to him once or twice and assume everything's fine.
Yep. Yeah. I even asked my wife, I said, you want to get a scanner so you can hear what's going on? She's like, no, absolutely not. Don't want to know. Yeah. Nope. Just come home every day. That's all I want.
Yeah. Again, smart lady. Man, that is intense, brother. Do you have a heartwarming encounter from your career?
Oh, I do. And I love talking about this. So back in 1994, when I was still a young recruit, new on the force, someone asked me, they're like, hey, we do this thing off duty. We get in our uniform, we go to Red Lobster, and it's called Tip a Cup. We go out, we serve food, people give us tips, and it goes to this organization. You want to do it? I'm so new. I'm like, oh, I guess the question just demands a yes, so I guess I'm going.
Right.
So I did it. I had no idea who it was for, anything. A couple weeks after it's done, I get this letter signed by the officer and from someone who was involved in the organization, and it was Special Olympics. And I was like, oh, wow, this is really neat. And I start doing my research on it and found out the connection between law enforcement and Special Olympics through the law enforcement torch run. And I kind of, showed up for events here and there, helped out. But
Sure.
I think 2016 would have been like 2014, I think it was. I really got involved in the law enforcement torch run when I was just ending my time in Wisconsin. Set up a Run with the Cops event where I was working, raised a ton of money for Special Olympics, and just kept going to the events, giving the athletes awards. During either regional or state competitions. That's something that is near and dear to my heart. And there are no bigger cheerleaders in this world other than Special Olympic athletes. They will drop everything to spend 30 seconds with a cop.
This is the sweetest
because
people,
they
right?
love everything we do. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's so great. And the friends I have made, in Special Olympics. And I'll tell you, that is one of the driving forces as to, I think, why I healed so well is the outpouring of support I got from the athletes when I got shot from around the country that just sent cards, pictures.
Oh, that's so sweet.
All sorts of stuff. And I have my own little buddy who's in the city that I work in. And she's 8 years old, Ari Graham, and she put a handprint on a canvas for me. And then her mom put on there that, when you need a high five, because we would always high five.
Oh.
And I tell you what, to this day, every time I look at that canvas, and I have it in my office at work now, I tear up a little bit because that is so special to me, being able to get that whenever I need that. And boy, she knew I needed it at that point, those high fives. So,
yeah.
Just all my time in Special Olympics. And I served as the state director for Washington for the law enforcement torch run. I got to help out with the USA Games here in Seattle in 2018. My biggest goal is to be able to do a torch run for one of the USA Games or one of the international games, to run the Flame of Hope into the ceremonies for the athletes. Because, again, it's one of those things that you just – you work and work to raise money for them and for them to participate in sports and their leadership activities, and the amount that they give back to you is priceless.
That's awesome, man. I've heard so many good things about that organization. We used to do the torch run at my old department. That's really cool. And I hear so many, I've heard so many positive things from parents of kids that have Down syndrome, and they said they're just the best kids. They're just sweet and loving, just like love bugs. They're just like great, great people, and they love cops. So What else can you ask for?
Yeah. Yep. And, and everyone says, oh, the kids in Special Olympics and what people don't understand, this goes on. I mean, we've got athletes that are 70 years old and they're just the greatest folks, and they're branching out and doing better things now. We got them set up during USA Games. They're doing online gaming now.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I think the first game they did was one of the car racing games.
Okay.
I don't want to go head to head against any of these athletes because, man, they can game. I brought my department out for a flag football game against a local team, and they routed us. I mean, these
awesome.
athletes are incredible with what they do.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man. That's great. This next question is right in your wheelhouse as a former background investigator and member of recruitment. And also people really, really love this because there's a lot of people who are thinking about being cops or on the fence or in academy, and they kind of use a podcast to hear you guys and gals tell your stories and stay motivated and be like, this is why I want to do it. So advice to new police officers and candidates that are getting on the job now.
Advice to new candidates, I would say your number one thing is make sure that this is the career for you. Go on ride-alongs. And go on ride-alongs, talk to the officers, make sure the department's a fit for you. Don't look at money. Don't look at dollars, cents. This cannot be about the money. This has to be about a fit for you. And if this is a job for you, because, man, I'm seeing more and more coming through the academy and going back to their departments. And within a couple of months, they're like, no, this job isn't for me. And they quit. And that's just a lot of wasted time. So make sure that this is the job for you. New officers, any new officers that are listening that, you just got on the force. I am the big proponent of you need to get out there and you need to find a therapist or someone to get on their books to talk with either monthly, quarterly, whatever, to have that individual that you can just unload on that's not related to you. So that if a critical incident comes up or something happens, they can see how you're changing and how to get you back down to your normal and work you through it so that you're not dealing with all these problems that us old timers are dealing with.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you already have the relationship, they know you, like you said, they'll be able to, you don't have to like sit down after this big event and like get them caught up. They're already right there.
Yep. Yeah. And most departments now, I mean, if your department's insurance covers it, like you said, it's a $10 copay normally to go see them once a quarter. You don't need a reason. It's just a check-in.
Yeah, and there's no stigma to it really anymore. There's no back in the day, people thought like, well, if I go to talk to somebody, then like the chief could deem me to be mentally unstable, then could take my gun and I couldn't be a cop. That really isn't, I've never really heard of that happening. That's not really the avenue that happens. But, cops, we're all paranoid, we're about that type of thing.
Yep. Yeah. So that's my biggest advice for new cops is get that person to talk to and don't rely on a friend or family member. It's not fair to them.
Yeah.
They're not prepared for that.
Yeah. Traumatize them as well. Yeah. And that ride along, that is great advice because you could look great on paper. You could be strong and fit and all that stuff. But if you don't know what you're getting into, like you said, it's going to be a big waste of everybody's time. I mean, the time's put into backgrounds, the selection process, then the academy, just to find out that you don't. It's okay. It's good if you realize it about yourself, but realize it earlier on. Then rather than wasting your life doing that, because it is. You may go to a call on one of these ride-alongs and find yourself in like fight or flight mode and be like, not this. I don't feel good in this situation. Right? This doesn't excite me. This actually sickens me. And if that's the case, right. Plenty of cops get over that too. But if that's your initial response to like smaller stuff, then, it's real. It's not the movies. It's real. And people are, you go right into people's lives, like inserted into the house with something weird cooking that's burnt and blood on the floor. It's the weirdest thing to be a cop, and you're just in everybody's business. And like you mentioned with that investigation, if you work in where you grew up, you're going to see the dirt, and your community's not going to look so nice after a few years. You're going to see problems everywhere. You can just drive around town and be like, bloop, 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 bad stuff there, bad stuff there. I remember driving with my dad, and always had a great relationship with him, still do this day. He's like my best friend. But I remember I used to love to go to the dump with him, and we drive. And I thought it was so cool he was a local cop, because it was like almost like a local celebrity to a kid. It's like it's a job that's important. Secondly, he has a gun, which was awesome to me. It's like, the gun is the great equalizer of justice. Like, and all these things, the badge, and you come home with dinner and eat. And then we would drive to the dump, and you'd see somebody like, a local drunk riding a bike, or one guy was punching a telephone one day, and my dad's just like, dirtbag, scumbag, lowlife, scumbag, dirtbag. It's like, I think my dad thinks everybody in town's a dirtbag.
Yeah. It's funny because the current agency I'm with, there was a time I rode down one of the main drags with my wife, and we're just driving down there. I'm like, oh, there's a prostitute. There's a prostitute. Oh, yep, she's a prostitute. Oh, yeah, over here, that's where they do their bit. And she's like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Let's just get to the mall and get things taken care of. I'm like, okay, all right, fine.
You're ruining the whole city for me.
Yep.
That's too funny, man. Donovan, thank you so much for coming on, brother. I want to put in the show notes, Police Applicant Podcast. When the next time you guys are doing something? You guys doing a live coming up, or have an episode?
Well, we just did the live on the Nashville school shooting. I don't know.
That was great.
I think we have something coming up in a couple weeks, maybe. I know he mentioned something, so something's coming up. The newest one that he released, we spoke to an officer from Canada. I was co-hosting on that, so check it out. That's really interesting when you start talking to someone from Canada about what they go through their academy and that kind of stuff. So that's a lot of fun. Like I said, I learned so much doing that podcast.
Absolutely. It's a great time. So I'll link it in the show notes. Police Applicant Podcast. Donovan is, borderline co-hosting at this point, but you're featured on there all the time. He's got an email to the show. So he's got right in there, which is awesome. Great addition, man. I love listening to you guys. Again, honored to have you on, brother. And I'm going to do the outro. Can I put you in the green room for just a couple seconds?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. The great Donovan Hevner, everybody. Finally got him on. Great stories. Wow. I known he had been shot, but I didn't know he was off duty. That's scary. That's a crazy story. So thank you, Donovan. That was awesome. Guys, thank you for all the ratings and reviewings. We're up to like 900 and something, 920 something, 5-star or close to 5 stars, 4.9. There's always the haters in there to give me 1 star, but if you really love the show, the 5 stars is much appreciated. And if you really, really love the show, the Patreon would be great, especially now where I'm finding myself needing to replace some equipment. So without further ado, let me thank the Patreon sergeants, ladies and gentlemen. Let me see who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Brittany Sims, Elliot Sykes, Dave Ellman, Holly Vanover, Richard Tolles, Joe DeFries, Doug and Kelly Newman, Burley Boards, that's Dan Carlson, everybody, Derek Warden, Scott Young, Wayne M. Miller, the great Nick Noose, Tom Connell, just Dennis, because that's all he put, George Tessier, Motorcrop Chronicles, the Iceman, everybody, Greg Gaboy, Ben Peters, Scott Minkler, the great Tammy Wall, Sean Clifford, Braden Walker, the great Sasha McNabb, Corey Payne, the great Mike Quinn, I threw myself off doing that voice, Nathan Gowan, Jason Lau, the great Sarah Pomeroy, Lauren Stimson, Jake Pinedo, John Shoemaker, James Rose, Seth Wright, Tony Fahey, the great Tony Fahey, William James Ong, that's Deputy William James Ong to you, sir. The great Andy Biggs, ladies and gentlemen. Chris June, Adam Mihal. There he goes, Gary Steiner, and the handsome Lane Campbell. Guys, thank you so much for your continued support. The more I get into doing this and doing the podcast more regularly, the more important the Patreon thing is to me, because it's so cool to have just like super fans supporting the show. So I love it. I love you guys, and I really appreciate it. So without further ado, that's the wrong line. What I meant to say was, I'll see you guys next week.